Now back to the show. This is The Law Show on CL 650.
Yes, I got a black magic woman, got me so blind I can't see.
And welcome back to the show on the eve of Halloween. And we're talking about marriages breaking up and family law. We have David Halkett, partner of McQuarrieHunter in Surrey, and Leah Donaldson from McQuarrieHunter as well. She's an associate. Now, when you have somebody that works in this part of law all the time, does it scare you away from marriage?
No, not at all.
No?
No, I think it's interesting because you can give advice about the situation, but then when you're actually in it, you realize why people make all those mistakes because you're going to do it too.
Yeah.
So.
And you must have girlfriends and family members that come to you and say, you know, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have a crystal ball.
You know, I'll say it's taught me how not to behave during a separation. I've learned lots of ways that you should behave and the ways you shouldn't, and about communication and collaboration.
Well, it's interesting because people come in and they'll say that they're separating for whatever reason, and I'll think, damn, that sounds like my house. You know, that kind of stuff.
But
right?
they just have a different pain threshold, right?
Exactly. And you know, it's all how a lot of it's subjective as well and such. And what's interesting is I always say the same as Leah just said, that if that was ever me, I'd hope I would never act that way. But then you know damn well that you probably would to some extent. It's just the human nature. But, it seems to me that other than the few family law lawyers I know, a lot of us aren't divorced. It's because we've probably seen what everyone else has gone through, and it's really, why do we want? It's not as bad as we think it is.
Now, you're lawyers, you're not family counselors, but Is there a nugget of advice you can give to married people? Is it talk it out, or is it communication?
Well, I guess that would be probably what I would say.
Yeah, I would say definitely communication, but that means sharing of information. I think that's often there's a problem when one party is at a disadvantage and doesn't have information. There's a power imbalance, and it's not sustainable. Is that
money usually?
Often, but it can be with parenting as well. Yeah. And unfortunately, things do have to be shared. They don't have to be equal in every aspect, but one party can take over a certain portion of this part of their lives, but then there has to be an equalization on the other side, I think, for people to feel like they're partners.
So you're saying that often people feel like they're carrying the load and the other party isn't.
Yeah. And in a lot of areas I hear that. And it just personally, you think that, I've yet to have a couple come in to see me, like one guy or the wife, who didn't think they did everything in the home. And when I hear the other side, and that you see their version of events, it's like, were they in the same marriage? It's perception just becomes reality, and you got to step back and realize, my wife does X, I do Y. It may not be exactly 50-50, but it's 51-49, or it's some things take longer than others.
Well, then you have different levels of what you're doing.
Exactly.
Maybe one person does more in the home, but the other one works longer hours.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Brings in more income for the family.
Exactly.
So everything's that's the yin and the yang again.
Exactly.
All right. So with kids now, we talked about spousal support, and when you get into children, it's a formula, right, that the court looks at for how you're going to pay.
Yeah, it's when it comes to support, it's how many children, where do they live, and the income of the person that they don't live with the majority of the time. And the kickers come in when they're split equally. Then it's like an offset amount. But assuming for the moment the general case where the parties, one has them more than 60% of the time, the other under 40, you just go by the number of children, line 150 income, and you go down for the most part.
And that's payable on gross income, not net income. A lot of people think it's payable on the net income after tax.
Yeah, it's gross.
It's paid on gross.
Why would that be?
Well, back in 97, they used to be paid on your gross income, but you got tax deductions. Then they came on the tables and they reduced the amount you were paying, but there's no tax. So it's an after-tax dollars. Because it was a claim that someone was taken to the federal tax court, I think, or the Federal Court of Canada, that said she was being discriminated against on the basis of sex because she was paying tax on her kid's child support. And it was, at that time, the majority of the recipients were women. And so they said it was discriminatory. And so the federal government at the time said, okay, well, we'll do away with this and we'll just simply say you pay X dollars, but there's no tax implications.
So have you figured that out? Are you better off one way or the other? I guess the person receiving the money is probably better off. Right?
Yeah, the one
don't pay
paying
tax
can
on
be
it.
tough. Especially for the earners, say between 35 and 50,000 who have 3 children. They may make between 3,500 and 4,000 a month, but they may be paying upwards of $800 a month in child maintenance off their net income, which is a big hit.
Mm-hmm. So it's punitive on people who don't make as much money.
It can be, punitive may not be the right word, but it can be really harsh on people when they don't make a lot of money, but they have a large number of children.
Now, what's the breakup now? Sorry, pardon the pun. The breakdown, I should have said, of who's getting the children more. Say, well, to pick a 10 and 11-year-old kids, is it 50-50? Do they stay with mom Monday to Friday and go to dad's every second weekend? Or how does it usually break out?
I would say it's going more towards 50-50. We're
Yeah.
seeing, the traditional, every second weekend to dad just isn't the case anymore. I think it still depends on the parties' work schedules. So
Yeah, it
if
does.
dad does work more hours, obviously it's not going to be completely equal, but we're seeing mothers working long hours. And so sometimes they're with dad more than mom.
Yeah, it depends on the age of the children. Under 1, majority time with the mom. 1 to 5, probably maybe a third of the time with dad. 5 and up, as they get closer to the 10, 11 years old, you're getting at least 40% with each party, and then you're basically arguing over 20%.
So how does it typically work? Is it like, how do you break up a week in most situations? Are they with
It's a practical matter. So it's
Yeah.
about people who works when, who works where, whether they have daycare or family support to take care of the children, how far apart people live. So often when we see people that live close by, that they literally, the children, if they're old enough, will just go between the houses at will. And so it's basically an equal split with a loose schedule. And then we see the other aspect, which is basically very regimented time drop-offs and things like that. But it depends on a lot of those factors.
But how would you break up a week? So one partner might say, well, I always have them on the weekend and you always got the weekend off. Like, do you get that?
Well, what you sometimes do is you do a Monday and a Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, and then every second weekend. So you rotate yourself through that way. So in effect, it's a 2-2-5-5 in effect. Some just do an easy week on, week off. If you're splitting it, that's the easiest because the kids know where they are one week to the other. But again, it depends on how close you are. If you live too far away, it's not going to work because they have to go to one school.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And is that the case? Do most parents try to stay in the same geographical area?
Yeah, they try. The difficult ones is when someone deliberately moves to try and screw the other one's visits over.
And what recourse do you have?
Well, if it's in the local area, it's kind of hard to stop someone from
But that's
moving.
Greater Vancouver. It could be anywhere from Chilliwack to West Van, right?
That's hard. That's a harder one to try and stop, right? And so usually then, of course, the court has to look at what's best for the children. Why is the move being done? Even though the motive may not be that important, if they're not going for a better job, well, maybe it's not really a good reason for it.
So the court can really meddle in your life and say, well, that's not a good enough. I want to move to Victoria. Well, so the court can say you can't?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they can say you
They can
can,
say- well,
but
they-
you can't take the kids.
Yeah, they say the kids can't go.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So then the other person gets the more. That incurs child support.
Yep.
Or additional child support.
Yeah.
So how often is it that you get a 50-50 split where there is no child support? So
Not very often because the incomes pretty well have to be identical. Sometimes court will give you some leeway if it's like under $100 payable either way. But you're supposed to pay the difference between the two.
Yeah, that's a misconception. People think that if they share custody half and half, that there won't be any child support payable. That's only if they have identical incomes. If one party makes $150,000 and one party makes $30,000, the fact that you have your kids 50-50 doesn't mean that the higher earner isn't going to be paying child support.
You pay an offset of the two amounts.
when does the court listen to the children? At what age do they have a say? Obviously at 18 they can do what they want, but before then?
Starting at 8, they can start asking for the child's views. As the child gets closer to 12, 13, they start to be paid attention to more. The court still has the ultimate authority is to say it's not in the best interest of the child to move from one parent to parent. But when they get to be 12, 13, 14, no court's really going to stop you. Unless it's for a very bad reason.
But then there could be the argument that the other parent is poisoning that child's viewpoint of the spouse,
That
or
always
the former
kicks in.
spouse.
So what you do then is you often want to go and get what they call a views of the child report. And the child goes and sits with a psychologist, and they kind of figure out if the child's been coached or if he's been poisoned, or what is the person's view, and is the reason valid?
Now, it's been a couple of shows before I've done my joke. Can I do my joke?
Sure, why not?
Okay, so Lee, have you heard the joke?
I don't know if I have.
Okay, so the judge takes the son and says, "Do you want to live with your mom?" "No, I don't want to live with my mom because my mom beats me." And then he said, "Do you want to live with your dad?" "No, I don't want to live with my dad because my dad beats me." "Well, who do you want to live with?" "I want to live with the Toronto Maple Leafs because they can't beat anybody."
Yeah, you said that one. I don't think that was with Leah. I think that was one of Sarah's. Surely.
You bring that up with one of your clients, I'm sure that'll go over like a lead balloon.
That's a good one.
All right. With our, how many minutes we have, Dwayne? A couple of minutes left? 1 minute. All right. So here we are. We've had a great discussion again. It's always great having you in. Your advice to anybody that's going through the process or thinking about it, what should they do?
I think they should call Leah or me or Sarah and come in and meet with us, find out where they stand legally. We can't coach them through or give them advice on the emotional aspects of whether they should leave or not. I've had clients ask, should I leave? Well, that's your
choice,
decision. Yeah. But as long as they know their rights, then they can make an informed decision.
Yeah, I would just echo what David said. I think you need to be educated before you make any decision.
So the best way to find McQuarrieHunter is to go to McQuarrie.com, and you can dig on the website and find our two guests quite easily. David Halkett, a partner at McQuarrieHunter, Leah Donaldson, associate, and what's Sarah's last name?
Morse.
Sarah Morse, that's right. The three lawyers inside the family law division there at McQuarrieHunter. Thanks for being on the show. It's always great.
You're welcome.
Make sure you tell that Toronto Maple Leafs joke.
I will.
Before you come back next month. That's all the time we have. I'm Zach Spencer. We'll speak to you next time on CL 650.